Hey, it's Drew. You may know that I have a new book out called Renegade Marketing 12 Steps to Building Unbeatable B2B Brands that's now available on Amazon in paperback, ebook, or audio. Crammed with wonderful stories and game changing insights I've gleaned as both an interviewer and practitioner. I can't wait for you to check it out. In fact, for listeners of this show, I'd be happy to share an entire chapter for free. Just email drew@renegade.com and we'll give you chapter 1, Clear Away the Clutter, and our 12-step cheat sheet. Okay, let's get on with the episode. Hello, Renegade marketers. As I've referenced on this show many times and crystallized in my new book, Renegade Marketing, being a CMO today is really, really hard. But the successful ones are truly the cool cats of marketing. CATS being an acronym for courageous, artful, thoughtful, and scientific. Unless you think the CATS framework only applies to previous guests, I'm thrilled to introduce you to today's guest, Karl Vandenberg, the CMO of Gigamon, the fast-growing security, visibility, and analytics company. Karl is a Silicon Valley veteran, having held senior marketing roles at DataStax, Jaspersoft, Kickfire, and GM roles at TIBCO and SAP. He is also a relatively new parent, so I promise not to hit him with too many tough questions. Hello, Karl. Welcome.
Hey, Drew. Great to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm excited to see you. Are you getting any sleep these days?
A little bit, for a newborn, I think I'm doing pretty well, but yeah, no, we're managing fine. Thank you.
Funny story from the Drew archives. I was right after our daughter was born. I went for a job interview and I was sitting across the table from the head of HR for this company. And so she asked me, how's it going? I said, well, I have this thing called daddy brain right now. And like the interview it just went south so fast. There was no empathy whatsoever for what it means to be a new parent. So anyway, not a good way to start things. So don't ever use that term if you're listening. Just carry forth and act like it never happened. All right. Anyway, let's talk about courageous strategy and dive into starting with courageous strategy. Can you give a bit of background on Gigamon and what the situation was when you arrived in 2019?
Yeah, thanks, Drew. And again, great to be on the show, and hello to all fellow marketers out there. So yeah, back in 2019, when I started journey here at Gigamon, Gigamon, for those who don't know, is as you said, a sort of network security company. And the company had a very successful run as a public company, had been recently taken private by a PE firm called Evergreen, part of Elliott, one of the largest, most successful hedge funds on Wall Street, and a great team. And they decided to invest heavily in sales and marketing as part of their investment thesis. Was this is a company that had a lot of upside and a lot of growth, and they wanted to invest. And so I came in as part of the investment in marketing. Being part of a PE firm or part of the portfolio of a PE firm is an interesting place for a marketer to be. And we could talk more about that, I'm sure. But the job number one was reinvigorate the demand engine and define the vision for the company. So those were the two things that were top of my agenda.
Yeah. And so we're probably going to do a separate Renegade Marketers Live on that topic of being a CMO at a PE firm, because I think we could go really a long time on that. And I've talked to other CMOs that were in that situation, and I do think it is a very specialized area. And we heard from Mike Dickstein and Spencer Stewart about how that's a hot area right now, if you understand that. So we'll come back to that later. But so you mentioned two things, and I want to get at both of them: reinvigorate the demand generation engine and sort of brand, something to do with brand. Let's talk about first that order. It feels like that is the order that most CMOs are given. It's like fix the demand generation, then build the brand. And can we talk about that a second?
Yeah, it is it's a great question. I mean, there are, as you know, different types of marketers or focus that marketing has, whether it be around product or market definition or driving pipeline. At the end of the day, pipeline tends to be sort of the baseline. You need to have it. It may not be ultimately where you add the most value, but it is a necessary checkbox for any CMO. And so in the case of Gigamon, it was an interesting place because the company had been very successful from being really a product-led company to then a sales-led, and companies go through different transitions and different phases to becoming more of a market-led, and that was part of the investment in marketing. So as a result, though, of being product and sort of sales-led, marketing contribution to the business was very small. I've been at companies in the past, open source companies, where marketing brought in 90% of the pipeline. We were like low single digits.
Wow.
So it was very low. And again, it hadn't been an emphasis, it hadn't been a focus. And so the intention was, given our market and the opportunity, there was plenty of room for marketing grow. So the job was grow marketing contribution to pipeline. And it was quite a hill to climb. It was essentially, we were looking to exit from very low single digits to exit the year at 20%. So represent essentially a 6x growth in pipeline contribution, 12 months, which I had never seen done before, Drew. So it was a bit of a daunting task.
Wow. Okay. I want to break that down, but we're going to wait on that for a second. So we're going to come back to growing pipeline 6x, which is, I know that from a resume building standpoint, and any CMO who can walk into a CEO's office and say, we grew pipeline 6x, they're going to be, they're going to get the attention, because that is part of it. One of the things that we debate, and I've talked to some other CMOs about, is, can you really separate brand from demand? But it sounds like in many ways, just by creating and doing some blocking and tackling and getting all the components in place, you could in fact create demand without brand.
You can. There's certainly some mechanics. I think even the most skeptical of the value of brand out there, and I think that's a diminishing population, but recognize that there is air cover, if you will, even in the air cover to use that analogy, air cover for sales, there is value in brand, so people know who you are when you're engaging with them in a sales cycle. But yes, can you really drive effective demand without brand? I think you can to some degree, but you will be limited, because if people don't have the context, if they don't have the value of your offering front and center, you have to essentially have that conversation on a repeated basis, and it's not effective. And so having that air cover, that definition, definitely goes a long way to making an effective demand engine.
And by the way, air cover is among the best euphemisms for brand there are out there. If you're listening and if you're using the word brand and there's resistance to it, almost every anybody in sales, but probably CEOs and CFOs, they get that notion, because they know what it's like to call on a customer and have them say, who are you? Where are you from? I've never heard of your company. And so air cover as a euphemism for brand and brand awareness is a winner. It is no doubt a winner. I'm curious, one of the things that's hard when you take a new position like this, where there's a lot of, there's no demand gen engine, how did you sort of break down the challenges into a manageable set?
Yeah. And I have to give credit also to our president to set up the framework here for the investment. And it was really like looking at what are the components to effective demand engine. And one of it was investing in inside sales. So BDRs, as we call them, business development representatives, was a big part of the investment. It wasn't just in the marketing, bringing in new CMO and investing dollars in the programs. It was putting aside. We had a small team before, and this was a significant. We hired nearly 40 people into that function. And that was a big part of making this successful. But then specific to the marketing and marketing programs piece of it, I'm an engineer by background, and so everything I think about and the way I think about, I like to break it down and very mathematically oriented. So I like to decompose a problem. And it was, first of all, understanding with some predictability, how do I know the activities that I do are going to generate the funnel and pipeline that I need? And so one of the first things that we did was we really created, and I hadn't been familiar with this before, maybe the audience recognizes or knows of something, but we built a predictive funnel forecast model. And that really was taking all of the activities that we've done historically, look at their performance top to bottom, and then building, if I were to pick from that menu list and put them into the outcoming quarters and the timing and the velocity, when can I see the return? So building a funnel forecast model allowed us to start operating more like sales, which is, one of the tips I would offer to any marketer out there. The more that you can operate like sales, with obviously some significant caveats, the easier it is for your executive and your board to understand the value that you bring. So that's one of the things that we did. And I think that was a foundational piece to us being able to manage that growth throughout the year.
So inside sales and predictive model, and I want to break the predictive model, but I'm going to save that for section 4. And that's so smart. And we talked a lot about that at the super huddle we had last week where we were talking about the CMO CFO relationship. And I'm just imagining that your CFO just got to love you for creating that, because their job is to sort of create predictable revenue, right? I mean, they're sort of trying to build a predictable P&L. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as you said, for another time, but we'll talk about how that also was helpful in the conversation with the investors.
Okay. So while we wrap up this thing, one of the things that the research that we did found that a number of CMOs actually didn't know, well, I shouldn't say this. I'm going to say their brand and their marketing wasn't differentiated. And I'm curious, what did you do? What process did you go through to sort of distill the brand promise down to sort of get to a very clear and hopefully poignant strategy?
Yeah. So one of the pitfalls or the challenges that we fall into sometimes is we become too inwardly focused. And so I think a good brand strategy, brand focus really start from the outside in. And so we undertook an extensive customer journey analysis as the foundation for understanding who our prospects are, what drives them, what are they looking for in a brand that they can trust. And so that influenced then the voice that we came up with as a company. How do we want to represent it? That's true to who we are, but then corresponds to what they're looking for and what they trust. And then the other piece, and this is part of the evolution of the company, is that we undertook is where are we going? Because customers and prospects want to be led. They want to partner with a company that can provide a vision that helps them solve for their most pressing challenges now and in the future. And so we wanted to know, where is the market going? Because we've been a leader in our current market, but we're creating a new one. So how can we lead customers? So presenting also a vision that got captured in the brand of, where we're going, where the market is going, and how we can help our customers get there more easily.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to transition now to sort of what we call artful, part 2 of this show, and about artful ideation. And you've done your market research, you've identified your strategy, and I'm curious, what was the vision and how are you articulating it?
Yeah, so to say a little bit more about Gigamon. Gigamon in its inception was really, it's an infrastructure play that sits in your company's network and allows you as an IT professional to see all of your network traffic and do so in a very inefficient way, so that your performance management, your security tools, your monitoring tools can work most efficiently. So that removes any blind spots. And it's an efficiency play, an originally efficiency play for the traditional data center. Obviously, the world has changed, and companies are moving to the cloud in all their various flavors. And so we've now extended that product investment started a number of years ago, so that now our, as we call it, visibility fabric covers the entire hybrid and multi-cloud. So I can sit and I can look at everything, remove all blind spots across the hybrid and multi-cloud, and allow my security tools and my performance management tools to operate in a way that's most effective and most efficient and most cost effective. And so, so that was really the vision that we had, and where we're bringing our customers. A lot of our customers are traditional IT professionals who also are going through, and their companies are going through, this cloud transformation. And so, and this move to the cloud. And so a big part of our vision was giving them the comfort that we had the journey mapped out for them, and that we could take them to the cloud in a easier, less risky, if you will, and very cost-effective way. So risk, cost, cost management are definitely key parts of the value that we bring to our customers.
And I'm curious, so you boiled this down to that. Was there a sort of kind of marketing ease? Was there any sort of articulation of that?
Yes, there was. Yeah. So the Gigamon is a known entity in kind of the networking space, but not a known quantity in cloud. And so part of what we need to do as part of our brand and strategy was to sort of wake people up, if you will, to a new Gigamon. And so we created Hawk. And Hawk is our cloud visibility offering. It's not just the product, but really is the face of the company as we move into the cloud. So Hawk by Gigamon, because we wanted to retain the strength of Gigamon, which is innovation, customer, customer success, central to who we are, and a lot of the good things that Gigamon represents. But we wanted to really put a new face on it, if you will, and so that's what Hawk is.
And it's funny, I was listening to a show by my friend Alan Hart with a brand strategy person, and they talked about this sort of master brand extended strategy. And this reminds me of that, where you need a new name to help your customers, your current customers, realize that there's some substantial change happening here, right? Yeah. But the problem, of course, is that once you have this second name, you now have two names, and you end up with, in theory, dividing up your the ability for someone to remember, who is it? I know we work with Gigamon. What's this new thing they have? And so Hawk by Gigamon, sort of you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. There's this new thing, but it's still the people that you know and trust. And I'm curious, it must have been a really interesting conversation as you were talking about this change, because, again, you have awareness of Gigamon, you have Hawk is, a bird.
Yes, exactly.
And so talk a little bit about the thinking that sort of got you to the place where this is the right brand strategy for you all to take.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a non-trivial one, as you said, Drew, right, that you have to go through. So there was a lot of thinking through the different types of brand evolution strategies we could adopt. And as I said, the driving force here was we wanted to, quotes, wake people up, because we have been creating and delivering and selling. We have 700 cloud customers for a few years. But there wasn't that market recognition. So we knew we needed to do something to kind of shift. But we didn't want to lose the core strengths and the attributes that Gigamon represents. So that's kind of where we ended up. It is a continuing journey, because part of, and this is context, obviously, that we have, is that we expect to continue to evolve as a company. So that visibility and analytics fabric, which crosses the hybrid and multi-cloud, is also the foundation for applications that we will deliver. So we partner with a lot of third-party applications. We have thousands, in fact, of ecosystem partners who plug into the fabric, but we're also developing our own and delivering our own. So we have a threat insight, which is our network detection and response offering, which plugs into that fabric. And we are, likely, we did an acquisition to bring that product into our portfolio. We will likely do other acquisitions. So we also wanted some framework that was extensible, so we could have other offerings by Gigamon. And so that's part of another reason why we chose.
So you're almost going to become a house of brands in some ways, because it's interesting. And again, this is fresh on my mind because I listened to the podcast over the weekend, but the idea of having this sort of, I'm going to call it a sub brand, Hawk by Gigamon, is that you can sort of, as you said, shake people up and say, oh, there's something different going on here. But ultimately, is the objective here to actually try to create another brand that can stand alone? And it sounds like, no, the object is to create a number of sub brands that are all connected to sort of create this spoke and hub model of blank by Gigamon. And what's interesting about what this one theorist I think he's from Lippincott, said was that ultimately brands sort of pull these sub brands together. And if you look at what Adobe is doing with both Marketo and Magento, you can see that happening in real time. So anyway, it's a fascinating choice, and I totally get it. And so the alternative would have been to sort of rebrand Gigamon altogether so that you could say, hey, we're more than you thought we were. That's why we're rebranding. But so you went this route. Okay. And let's just ask the question, how'd it go?
Still early, right? We're a year into, we're not even, we launched Hawk in March of this year. So it's still early in the journey. The reception has been very positive, both internally and externally. We know that from some of the metrics that we track, whether it be website visits or downloads. We had a big launch, co-launch with AWS around Hawk, and then a number of other ecosystem players that supported us and plug into Hawk, and so we had a rolling thunder. So good, I would support from the ecosystem who were eager to participate. Good reception from our employees, and that's a big part of the brand transformation. We're about a 500 million employee size company, and getting every one of those employees to be ambassadors for Hawk was a big part of our investment, because that's going to be a lot more powerful than just the marketing department. And so they've received it very well, and they're enthusiastic about that journey. So customers, kind of the market at large, and employees so far seem to be very enthusiastic.
Very cool. All right, we're going to use that to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to dive in a little bit on more of the execution, and then we'll get to metrics and all of those good things. So if you're listening, stay with us. So if you don't mind, I'd like to plug CMO Huddles for a second. Launched in 2020, CMO Huddles is an invitation-only subscription service that brings together an elite group of CMOs to share, care, and dare each other to greatness. One CMO described Huddles as timely conversations with smart peers in a trusted environment, while another called it a cross between an expert workshop and a therapy session. If you're a B2B CMO that can share and care with the best of them, please visit cmohuddles.com or send me an email to see if you qualify for a guest pass. Okay, we're back, and we've been talking about how you launched Hawk by Gigamon, a new way of thinking about the brand, a new product, and so forth. And I want to get to, you mentioned 1,000 employees as being important. How long did you give to internal communications before you launched Hawk?
We started a journey, we launched this in March. We started a journey last year, towards the end of last year, kind of telling a little bit about the transformation we were going through. Obviously, we took the executive team and the board through the intention. They were very much part of the decision process to go down this path, as well as certain industry stakeholders. And then we took the employees, really started that journey at our sales kickoff, which was really a company kickoff this year in conjunction with some sales specific activities. And so that happened at the beginning of the year. So it was, 4-month, I would say, lead time into before the launch.
So much better than the research that we did, where most folks only give less than 4 weeks for their launch. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you did to help employees understand it and then prepare them to be ambassadors.
Yeah, so some of it is your standard fare. So executive updates, sharing at there was an overview at our company kickoff that I provided, some product demonstrations that we did as well, and then we launched a competition on social media to get them involved, and what was some creative ways that they might highlight Hawk. And obviously it's an easy enough one to think of different creative ways that you could use Hawk. And so that was great to see that participation and excitement. We have, as a company, over the period of the pandemic, sent out care packages, and so we did a whole Hawk branded care package, and there was a kite in there with the Hawk branding and some other elements that were fun. So again, getting that enthusiasm and excitement. And we started a cross-functional team, Team Hawk, that represented different employees from different parts of the organization. They volunteered, and that team gathers regularly to understand what are the roadblocks and the opportunities that they see from their perspective and their function, to be able to have the employees as a whole really get engaged and excited to be promoters of Hawk.
Wow, there's a lot there that I want to unpack, because you mentioned a social media competition, a care package, and a cross-functional team. All three of those are great sort of things to be thinking about to build your sort of employee communications program. Talk a little bit about the social media competition. What kinds of things came out of that?
Yeah, so actually one of them was someone wanted to get a cameo from Tony Hawk, the skateboarder.
Of course they did.
And so we did that, actually. We did that, and in fact, Tony Hawk became, we held our first ever user conference, the Cloud Visibility Conference, Visualize, that happened in May. And so Tony Hawk became our spokesperson, if you will, to invite people to that conference.
Amazing. So this idea that came out of social ended up becoming part of your customer engagement program. I love that. Okay, that's really cool. What else happened as a result? Any other examples of things that came out of, or things that employees did as part of the social program?
Yeah, so I think it was, there were, I don't have any other ones that come top of mind, but there was a lot of, and we use a platform, as I'm sure others do. Amplifies one we use. Hootsuite, I think, is the product, and we saw a huge uptick in the engagement of employees as measured by the metrics that we see on that dashboard around Hawk, and that has continued since. So just the volume, by getting people to really think whatever function they were in, and they could win prizes as part of the social media competition for whoever got selected to have the post of the day. We saw a huge uptick in general by employees posting around Hawk.
There you go. Now, if you want employees to post every day, you better have a competition that goes every day. Post of the day. What a great idea. Love that. Also, just want to remind folks that we will be talking about metrics in the next section, but having employee engagement as a metric, as part of the success of your marketing program, at least in my opinion, and what I write about in the book, is essential. You mentioned a care package. I just want to, because I love these details, and I think the listeners appreciate these details as they're thinking through their next product launch. What else was in the care package besides the kite?
Yeah, so it was in the beginning of the summer, and so we wanted something that people could use, and so it was a kite for the kids. It was a picnic basket, so it was a great hamper that you could put stuff in, and it was actually a nice collapsible one, so it didn't take up any space. There was a rug, waterproof on one side, so it was really for the family to take in, and that was. What we saw after that is you'd see the picture of this picnic basket. It was more an internal Slack channel in different locations. People would have it, taking the picnic basket in different places. It was a great way to kind of share the enthusiasm, not only for Hawk, but then for, I think what people, and I recognize that the company has done a tremendous job in taking care of its employees throughout the pandemic. And so just some enthusiasm for that as well.
I love that. And it's great. You've done something well when employees want to take a picture, take it with you, and share that. There's a lot of pride that comes through there. The last thing that you mentioned that really struck me as a cross-functional team. And can you talk about what went into getting that, even that idea of as having that team is not something I hear a lot about, at least in these interviews. Talk about the source of the idea and then how you executed it.
Yeah, so so one of the leads on from a Hawk marketing perspective really came up with this idea and said, felt that it was a good way for us to engage the employees and to organize and to see things that we wouldn't necessarily see in marketing or at corporate, right? And so it was, hey, we're gonna do this. We want everyone to be involved, and so we launched on Slack an open invitation to whoever wanted to, and we got oversubscribed. We wanted to keep it not too big, but sizable enough to reference different functions. So we had about 12 or 15 that we ended up with, but we were oversubscribed, which was great. And then it's run, on a monthly basis. There's an agenda in terms of different parts of the business that we want to review and make sure that, again, as I said earlier, it's about obstacles and opportunities. What are the things that are preventing us? Because we're transforming as a company. Like, as I said, like the market is, like our customers are, so we're making that transformation as well. So what are the things that are impeding us? And then what opportunities or ideas does this team have that could apply both internally or externally in the market?
Okay, I love that. And makes it so clear what it is that you need out of the group, what the opportunity for them is to contribute. And I imagine there's the source of pride of being able to participate in something like that. So that's another, but it's also as you said, it's not just coming from marketing. So this body becomes really invested in the overall success as opposed to their little part of the world, which is kind of cool. Just a terrific idea. All right, I want to go to, you mentioned that you kicked off this with a employee a customer event of some kind. Talk about the customer rollout of Hawk.
Yeah, so as our capstone event, we started the launch with an announcement with AWS, and then had a series of kind of rolling thunder with half a dozen other technology partners, and then a whole bunch of other, digital brand, the usual around cool video, everything that would surround that launch. The capstone event for us was our first ever user conference as a company, which is unusual given, as I said, the size of the company and its history. But we decided that we needed a customer-facing event to really get this off the ground. And so we created Visualize, which was the industry's first and only cloud visibility conference. Had a lot of good, again, ecosystem sponsorship, co-sponsored with AWS, Nutanix, FireEye, New Relic. There's a long list, so I'm not going to remember them all, but very, very good list of ecosystem partners. And then the idea was a couple of things. One, help the market understand and our customers understand cloud visibility and analytics and the role it plays in their future. And we had some great keynotes, both internal and external. And then we had some discussion groups as well. So it's not just about, we had the product side, we had the keynotes, and then we had some discussion groups so that the prospects and customers could come together and could talk about, for their particular industry, the challenges that they were seeing, the opportunities that they were working on.
So it really became more than just a, not that it would have needed to be more, but it's, you had customers there, but you also had prospects or an opportunity to say upsell or cross-sell these folks. And I imagine, and I'm just gonna, the partners doing that rolling thunder approach, each of the partners brought their own audience to the table, which is a huge thing, as it had to have been a great lift for you all.
Yeah, no, it was. As I said, it really was a fantastic to see the support that we had, because there's clearly a need in the market for for what we're offering, which is obviously great validation for us. But it was fantastic to see the participation and the enthusiasm of our ecosystem in this conference.
So the one thing that I talk a lot about in the book, and I sort, that you're on your way when you do have a community of customers. And one of the ways to do that is by user conferences, right? And I think I told the story of Tableau, where their first event had 100 people, and it was like just getting off the ground. And the last one that Alyssa Fink had been part of had over 10,000. So I'm imagining this is an annual event for you now?
Yes. So Visualize will continue. And said our first event was 100% virtual. We are expecting the next one in 22 to be a hybrid event, as I think many companies are likely to do such events. And so it will be a combination of a virtual, global event with some specific in-person meetings, probably more for the executive track that we expect to do in some of the major metros.
Very cool. All right. So if I were to recap right now, I'd say the courageous strategy is actually saying, you know what, we need a different name to introduce a new product. That was a big, bold decision to make, and took some chutzpah. In terms of artful execution, you heard several examples between the social, getting Tony Hawk involved, and that's a really fun thing that a lot of people wouldn't have done because, oh, it's B2B. Why do we have the skateboarder there? But what it really did was generate interest in sort of, whoa, I got to think about this differently. What's Tony Hawk doing in my feed talking about cloud stuff? I just love that juxtaposition. So we went for artful. And then in terms of thoughtful, just having a user conference, getting employees involved. Well, first, employees involved, engage employees first. Second, cultivate customer champions, which you did. And then I have no doubt that there were additional programs to get prospects into the pipeline through, I'm going to call it selling through service. I bet it's in there. I bet you did some interesting content. I'm just going to guess that you found ways of making it easy for your prospects to get to know what Hawk is and why that's should be part of their future. Just guessing.
Yeah. So a lot of it starts with, the top level stuff. As I mentioned video earlier, ebooks, kind of working them through that journey all the way down to how does Hawk integrate with the products and the tools that I have? So getting very hands-on with some nice short videos that we had as part of the launch. But this is, Drew, this is, as I said, we're beginning a journey. So still a lot more to come. And, our field is always good in coming back and pointing out, hey, would be nice to have this. Can we have that? And so that is part of our evolution. And our customers too, as they start deploying this and learning about it, they also have suggestions on what we can do better. So always looking to improve.
Awesome. All right. So let's talk about the scientific method here. At the very top of the hour, we talked about how, we have to focus on both demand gen and ultimately on brand, and that one can be a successful CMO if one can 6X pipeline. And it sounds like you 6X pipeline. Is that
we did. Yeah, I wouldn't be a very good marketer if I mentioned that and we didn't deliver. So in fact, we won the Serious Decisions Award for that year for the transformation and demand engine. And it did come from, obviously, we got the investment. That's obviously a prerequisite, but it was building the machine. And I mentioned I'm an engineer, so I think in terms of machines and the parts of the machine. One of them was building a high propensity target model, which we built in-house. There are off the shelf, but we felt for our needs, and we had the expertise, some great data scientists part of the team, to build that model that allowed us to really focus our investment. So we needed to make sure every dollar we spent or every penny we spent was spent wisely. Building that predictable model so that I had some confidence that the things that we were going to do were going to produce the results that we hoped. And then implementing a franchise model, which is, as I'm sure many of the fellow CMOs can relate to, marketing, like any other function, does not exist in a silo. And so we in order to be successful, we have to operate as a go-to-market franchise. And so, and down to the regional or sub-regional level. It's not just a corporate thing, but it is down in the regions where the marketing, sales, BDR, channel representatives are coming together. They're looking around a core set of metrics, which we provide them for their region on, here's your target, here's your predicted pipeline, here's a set of activities that you're doing, and allowing them to make decisions at the local level, obviously with corporate support, in order to be able to optimize and continue to optimize the output. So that, I would say, those are some of the key components of the transformation and demand engine.
Wow. I would want to, we're going to have to get you on the ROI model, Renegade Marketers Live, because breaking down your high propensity target model, I know that listeners are going, wait, spend more time on that, but we're running out of time here. So I just want to ask a couple more questions, but I really want to understand that at a later date. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned employee surveys and how you were tracking that. Talk a little bit about that.
It's about twice a year we do it. Some companies do it more frequently. We twice a year we run a survey. It's actually run by our HR department. We call it the Pulse survey, and as standard set of questions, and occasionally we'll evolve it, and then we take those results. And from a marketing perspective, obviously we care about every function and how every function is doing. We have our own work to do. And during the pandemic, we saw swings in that. There were some real highs, in fact, some record highs during the pandemic, because I think people recognized that the company was putting employees first. We are one of the unique companies, to my knowledge, that actually has employees first versus customers first as part of our brand values or corporate values. And that really, that was very visible during the pandemic. So we had some real highs. We had some lows too, and in marketing, we had some lows where people were burning out, and were working really hard but not getting the results that they expected. And so navigating employees through that was a big part of our focus, especially this last year.
Yeah, I mean, this is true at so many companies, and it's so hard because of Blur's Day, right? You don't know how many hours your employees are putting in anymore, and they're working, and you're always on because you turn the corner, there's your computer up, office hours. And so it's really hard for employees to turn it off. And so many are just quitting and figuring, well, I'll get another job. And so it is a real problem. And marketing and CMOs are stepping in because brand and culture are in how you relate to employees. You no longer have the office setting to define culture. So you've got marketing and communications and the way you talk and engage employees.
Yeah, and be excited. Yeah. So as you said, like knowing that the employer cares, obviously that's the care packages and other things we did, but knowing there's a vision, a strong vision, and there is excitement, goes a long way too. So that was all like, subtext to the whole Hawk launch and getting employees engaged was, to build up that energy and excitement around the vision for the company.
That we actually know where we're going. So stick around because it's going to be great. Yeah, totally makes sense. Those dots really connect. All right. Well, we've literally run out of time, and I'm thinking about the person who's working out and they've done their 45 minutes and they're like, Drew, wrap it up. Gosh, there've been so many interesting things that you did in this program. I so appreciate you being here. I'm going to give you one last chance. If there's any lessons learned from this that you'd like to share with the audience, please do so now.
Yeah, so I would say communication, education, marketing is going under such a huge transformation, and keeping your stakeholders, both your team, the executive team, and the board up to speed. And so don't be afraid to over communicate and I'm telling myself that as I'm telling the audience, because I forget to do it sometimes too, but it is so, so critical.
That's a perfect place for us to wrap up. Karl, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I really appreciate it. We're expecting Hawk to soar, and look forward to more conversations down the road.
Great. Thank you so much, Drew, and great to be on your show. And good luck to everything you and everyone else is up to.
All right. Well, if you enjoyed this show, boy, there was so many good things in there. Do me a favor and hop on over to your favorite podcast channel and give us a 5 rating, or share it with a friend. I'm your host, Drew Neiser. And until next time, keep those Renegade thinking caps on and strong.